Hi guys, welcome to Obsidian Position. Happy that you're here today. So today I'm going to be going through how I integrate ANKI into my Obsidian note system. Basically, it's a three-tiered approach with AnKing being like the overall like daily driver. You're all familiar with AnKing and I'm sure you're using it. But also AI assisted or AI generated flashcards from lecture notes and using those to study for like systems exams and upcoming exams that your lectures are based off of. And then integrating the space repetition plugin from Obsidian, which I think is useful for basically trying to hammer down those more difficult topics or concepts that you struggle with and help with reviewing them before you go into specific clerkships or rotations. So yeah, let's get into it. So I've created a new vault here and I went ahead and created a note called shortness of breath. I'm going to show you the space repetition plugin in Obsidian first, and then we're going to go into the AI assisted flashcards because I think that the space repetition is probably the thing that needs the most explaining here. So let's say you just took a lecture note, and here's a lecture note that I just brought in from one of my lectures that I attended back in my first 2 years. And so we're going to go into the settings here, and so it's a plugin that you're going to be putting in here. So you go to community plugins, turn on community plugins, and we're going to browse the community plugins, and we look for space repetition. This one by Steven is the one that you want. So you're going to install it. It only takes a couple seconds, and then enable. And there's a lot that you can kind of dive into with this plugin. If you're really interested, go ahead and give it a read. I know that Steven put a lot of work into it too. So so now that we have that enabled, you're going to see this little guy come up over here, and it's a review flashcards tab. And there's also a cards due and a notes due down at the bottom of your screen as well. Those are going to pop up just because you have the plugin installed now. So how this works basically, so let's dive back in here. So we have our note, like I mentioned there, and we have space repetition on. So we're going to actually go down into the space repetition, and it all links off of tags. So because we're talking about shortness of breath, and let's say we're going to have a test at the end of this week on the pulmonary system, I'm going to just label it as #pulmonary. Okay. And, you know, like I mentioned, there's a whole lot of other things you can go into here as well as far as editing. But one of the things, so you have to have a certain syntax when you're putting these notes together. I'm just going to get rid of these colons and put in semicolons just because one less keystroke. Okay, so now we have this whole note, and there were some things that I really wanted to capture, right? I had these testable questions. Basically what I did was I put them into like a space repetition heading here, and I took these questions, right, and I put them into a format in which the space repetition is going to like. These are the double semicolons, like I mentioned. If you don't change it, then you need the double colons. And this is going to be like a front and a back of the flashcard. So in order for me to then be able to review these, I have to actually add in a tag here. So if you saw what I did here, that was 3 dashes. So there's 3 dashes, and I'm going to quick go into source mode here to show you what I did. Oh, quick go back out of source mode. Okay, so 1, 2, 3 dashes, and that brings up properties. Okay, and this is like your front matter of your notes. This is the way that you can organize many of your notes. The space repetition plugin goes off of the tags that you create here. Okay, so you have to make sure that the tag matches the one that you have in the space repetition file. So because I have this tag in here now, the space repetition plugin is going to recognize this note by its hashtag, and then it recognizes this syntax that I put in here. So don't worry about this, like this stuff here. That pops up actually after you've integrated it with the space repetition, which I've gone through this before, so that's why it looks like this. But all you have to do is basically put in, you put in your first question, double semicolon or double colon, whatever you choose, and then you put in your answer. And when you go over here to review your cards, you're gonna have your cards to review in here. Let's make one more card here. So let's see here. So pure diastolic heart failure is treated with, and then I can put, like 2 here, because there's going to be 2 answers, right? Based off of what I set up here, furosemide nitroglycerin. So, and that's a new one that I created. So, and it's following the syntax. So when I go in here, then here's what my card looks like. And this is what I'm going to review for today, right? And so these will follow the same pattern as your ANKI does. For space repetition, and so you can just review them as they come up, and you're going to see that down in this little indicator down here. So that's basically how you use the space repetition plugin, and that's as easy as it can be. You can literally just put in this syntax into any of your lecture notes that you're taking. I would recommend looking at the objectives for the lecture and basically making flashcards off of that. Now we're going to get into the AI assisted flashcards. All right, so now what I'd like to do is show you how to use the AI integration to create flashcards from your lecture notes. And so I'm just going to be using Claude, and basically I'm just creating a prompt that I want Claude to follow to create like several flashcards from the lecture that I took, the lecture notes that I took. I'm just telling Claude, I said, I'd like to share a .md file from Obsidian and have you make pertinent ANKI cards from it. The lecture was on shortness of breath. Make ANKI cards based on my notes to test me on the main topics for the lecture. Include closed deletion where appropriate and regular flashcards where appropriate. Package it into an easy form so I can just move it into my step 3 ANKI deck. Okay, like let's say I'm studying for step 3. Let's say, you could do any systems based thing too, which I think is what I would recommend for this. So I'm just gonna send that to it. And while that's waiting, I'm gonna actually bring up my note again on shortness of breath. Okay, and I'm going to reveal in Finder. And so this shortness of breath comes up. Okay, so actually I'm just gonna take that, move that out of the way, and I'm just going to move my shortness of breath MD file into Claude, and I'm going to send it in. And this way it should take that prompt, format them into like .text file. I'm going to be able to take that and put that right into my ANKI step 3 deck. So it'll give you notes on how to do this and everything. But basically all I'm going to do is I'm going to download this, and I'm going to download this as the file. I'm going to put it on my desktop. And let me bring up ANKI here. All right. So here I have ANKI, and I'm just going to, like, let's say we just have, we have to create a new deck, right? So for me, I'm just gonna say step 3, but I'm gonna go in here, file, import, and here are my flashcards that were made, the AI assisted flashcards, okay? And so then I can just import those right in here. It's gonna give me an overview, and I can literally just study these now. So I could tell the AI that I want 30 notes, I could tell it I want 10 notes, I could tell it what to focus on. I could specifically put a spot in my notes where it just says like ANKI cards or testable questions or space represent, whatever, right? Like, or I could just have it go based off of the notes that I took, which was what I prefer because it just reduces the friction that you have to go through while you're taking notes in class. And this way, then you're going to have, you know, flashcards that are pertinent to that lecture and that system that you can then review in ANKI in your space repetition timeline. And so I think this is good. This would be especially good for studying for like in school exams that you're going to have. So yeah, that's basically that. You guys are also familiar with AnKing. You know, I have AnKing on mine as well. And I think that overall, the way to integrate this is, you know, you'd use AnKing as your daily driver. I think that it's one of the best things that you can use for step studying. But you're also here because you care about personal knowledge management. And personal knowledge management means using a system like Obsidian so that you can reference these things later on because, you know, like I mentioned in previous videos, nobody's going to keep doing ANKI. It is a hassle. It takes so much of your time, and it's a high cognitive load. And so having a system like Obsidian where you know where your information is, that's personal knowledge management. But I think that it's important to integrate it, right? You have to memorize certain things for step studying. In that way, AnKing is your good daily driver, and you have to find the balance of how much time to spend with AnKing and doing flashcards and also reviewing notes and things like that. That's your balance. You have to figure that out for yourself. But when you use, like I said, I think I'd use AnKing as that, you know, overall umbrella. You're hitting all your things with AnKing, and then I would step down to these AI assisted, AI generated flashcards based off of the lectures, so that then you can study specifically, you know, objectives based for the lecture and the exam that you're going to be taking in, you know, several weeks time or whatever for school. And then just below that, then I would use Obsidian space repetition as a tool for creating those decks within Obsidian that you want to review prior to going on a clinical rotation, prior to doing a rotation in residency, those like high yield things that you want to know prior to doing those experiences. And I think that can be a really powerful tool that way. That's pretty much how I would integrate ANKI and integrate space repetition into my studying, especially if I was in my first 2 years or in my third year of medical school. And I'm kind of interested to see how this works for residency, because I think that I could use the Obsidian space repetition tool, especially for like difficult concepts and things that I mean, like I could just like, even thinking about like memorizing like bishop scores and things like that for OB-GYN, you have to review them to know them. So yeah, I mean, I can let you guys know how it all goes too, but I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have. I appreciate you being here, and yeah, we'll see you next time. Check out any of my other videos if you're interested. So thanks for sticking around. Bye.